We just watched Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, Season 1, Episode 8, Alloyed. What are your thoughts?
I thought it was a good episode, especially in comparison to some of the other ones that we had. Like, it was one of the better ones. However, some of the creative choices and liberties that they've made with this property, especially in this episode, are baffling to me. And some of the comments that they've made, the showrunners specifically, have made about Season 2, talking about Sauron specifically, it makes me question, like, if they even know what they're doing, like, if they even know how to write a fantasy story, because they're making comparisons between Sauron and Tony Soprano and Walter White, which are it's a drastically different kind of show. So yeah, those are outside factors for this series, but yeah, this episode, fairly good. Going to give it probably a 6 out of 10.
Okay. Yeah. I also thought it was, for the show, pretty good. The quality was in line with the last episode, which we also enjoyed, and much better than what they started the show with. And so even given the choices they made, which I did not necessarily agree with, but we kind of saw coming, I'm going to give this one a 7. So let's get into it. What is the big reveal of the episode?
Okay, so it turns out Halbrand is Sauron and the stranger is an Istor or a wizard. Those are probably the biggest things that happened. And they also forged 3 rings of power, with the one ring not being shown to be forged. However, it left me questioning with how with the episode ending with Halbrand / Sauron. We'll probably call him Sauron going forward. Him fleeing to Middle Earth or to Mordor. Like, he left the place where they're forging the rings of power. But we know that he's supposed to end up with the one ring. Does he convince Celebrimbor later?
I think he creates it in the fires of Mount Doom, does he not? Because it has to be destroyed in the fires that created it.
I mean, maybe I'm not remembering.
But like, that's why they had to throw it into Mount Doom in the original trilogy, was because it was forged in Mount Doom, so it can only be destroyed in Mount Doom.
So it could be forged later.
So that's what I think, yeah.
Okay, it must have been me just misremembering, like, the details of how it happened. Because, yeah, I was like, but he deceived them and then left them without the one ring. So my misunderstanding of the whole thing led me to be more confused.
Mm-hmm.
But that makes more sense.
So speaking of that reveal, though, I'm just going to shout myself out. I called it in episode 4, or after episode 4 when he was smithing.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'm not going to say they set it up well, but it wasn't 100% out of left field. It just, the execution, in my opinion, wasn't great, where he just goes from being like, this guy, he's just doing his thing, and then all of a sudden is like, I want to rule the universe with you.
Yeah, it turned...
Galadriel, join me!
Yeah, it turned really quickly, because I felt like they rushed it, essentially, is how I felt, is that they're like, people are, if they wrote this thinking of the audience, it'd be like, the audience is catching on, we gotta just reveal it right now, or else they'll be complaining.
Yeah, and they tried to throw in the twist of, like, the stranger, in, I believe, was it this episode?
They had those... I forget what they're called, but those 3
followers.
Beings. Yeah, the 3 followers. In this episode, they said, "You are Lord Sauron," and, like, tried to do a huge red herring. Like, they were confused themselves. I do want to just sidetrack really quick. They killed off one of the best characters in the show during the part with the stranger and those 3 people. Sadik is dead, and I'm really upset about it because he grew on me a lot, and they did, like, he gets the throwing knife to him, right? Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, he's dead. And then he comes out the bush, stabs the person in the foot, and it's like, he's alive! And then he goes and he's like, I just want to see one last sunset. And I'm like, he's dead? Like, it went such a roller coaster, and they ended up killing him off. And now I'm like, with the Harfoots, the group total, the only people I really like there now is, it's only really Poppy.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was going to be the mom who gets killed off, but it was Sadik, and, that made me sad. Like, there's just no two ways about it. That was a sad character to leave us.
Yeah, one of the best written Harfoots. And just the actor did such a good job making him likable, and like, even though he at the beginning he's like kind of a grouchy, like, oh, we gotta stick to the ways, like, I like how that character evolved to being more open-minded about things, especially when the stranger started to show his talents. Like, I don't know, I thought it was really good, and now he's gone.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the stranger, I believe it was never confirmed in the show, but he's not just a wizard. I'm 90% sure he's Gandalf, just based on the quotes that he had.
Yeah, so the dialogue was direct quotes from Gandalf.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and treat that character as Gandalf, which is like, you know what? Too bad, because it would have been nice to see a different wizard. But I guess Gandalf's kind of important to, the whole history of Middle-earth, so it makes sense, but we thought we were getting original characters with, Halbrand and the Stranger and all that, and then it turns out, no, it's Sauron and Gandalf the whole time.
And yeah, like, I have no problem, like, with the show that we got, like, the package we have, I would have had no problems now that we got the full season 1 if they had these 2 original characters doing whatever. Like, it's already departed from the writing quite a bit, like Tolkien's writing quite a bit. So why do you have to hold yourself to, like, down that path of doing, like, these weird twists, like these unnecessary twists?
Yeah, but we knew the show was going to do this. So let's focus on some things we did like about the episode.
Okay, some things I really did like were the visual effects with, like, the wizard battle. Reminded me a lot of The Hobbit when they were trying to... I forget exactly where it was, but it was when, like, Galadriel and Gandalf, like, show up to that evil temple. And they do...
Funnily enough, the same forest they were in.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of that, and I thought it was good. I like where they're going with the stranger and Nori. I do wish that there was a third character there, but maybe they'll pick someone up along the way.
Well, I guess the stranger, Nori, and Poppy?
Poppy is staying behind.
Oh, that's right. So
it's just the stranger and Nori
are doing their own adventure now.
Yeah, going off, doing their own thing. I think that's a good direction. I'm interested in a way to see, like, how Sauron being revealed plays into, like, the world as a whole. Like, does it matter? What are they doing with him?
Was he only revealed to Galadriel?
No, because Elrond had found... Well, I think as Sauron, potentially only Galadriel knows, because I don't think she told Elrond, and then she just said, don't talk to Halbrand anymore, he's no good.
Yeah, you know what's going to happen? Halbrand's going to come back and Galadriel's going to be like, it's Sauron, everyone. And he's going to gaslight Galadriel and be like, I was never Sauron. I'm just Halbrand. I'm the king.
Honestly, he could do that. Because she's too, scared to tell anyone, right? So he could come back and continue to deceive the elves and Middle-earth and make her seem crazy.
Now, the only caveat to that is that I think Elrond did pick up the scroll that Galadriel had.
So he knows Halbrand is not who he says he was, but that doesn't mean he knows he is Sauron.
Yeah. I don't think that's what they're going to do.
Speaking of things I like that scene. I thought that the way that scene was, that sequence was put together was quite good.
Where it was, like, jumping from all these different...
him finding the scroll in the water.
Oh,
and it puts that really, like, ominous tone over the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did think that Celebrimbor, like, was a good addition to... Because we didn't really had seen him in a handful of episodes, but not at, like, length, right? So having more time with him and seeing how he operates, like, I thought it worked well.
I think they could have even spent... Like, it's too bad we only got one episode involving the forging, because that could have been a whole 2-3 episode arc of, like, oh, we're trying to forge these rings. Oh, we can't do it. Oh, what are we going to do?
Cut
the elves
back to
are dying.
The dwarves, the elves, start incorporating more of the cast.
Which is a good thing, because that means, like, I liked what we got. I just wish there was more, which is always a good sign.
I can say that after this, like, it was all over the place for me mentally, like, trying to like, come to terms with what was happening. But now that I know that, like the show that we have, I'll watch season 2. I think it's enough for me to watch it. Especially considering like there's only a handful of shows I actually do watch. So this being one of them, I could see myself continuing.
Yeah, and the quality picked up in the last 2 episodes, which gives me hope moving forward. Now, the only thing is, I really hope the wizard and Nori intersect with the rest of our characters at some point, and I'm concerned that they're not going to bring back Arendir in a very good and natural way because he wasn't in this episode, and so it's going to feel like just out of the blue whenever he does come back. But yeah, I want them to have intersecting plot lines, even if they separate again like they did, as long as they know of each other within the world. It's like right now Nori's story is like 100% separated from the rest of it.
And that could be fine. I think the Nori stranger being separate could be fine because then they come in with like different knowledge if they end up meeting up with the group. And like they could work together. Like it just is a better point for them to, like when they do join, I think it would work better than being separate, because if they're all together, no one's learning different information. So with the Ister or Gandalf and Nori going off, they're going to learn something completely different.
Yeah, but they could do that after meeting, is what I think.
Okay, I see that.
Gandalf goes to the Forge, and they're like, oh, Sauron's like gone, and we need to find him, or like find out what his plan is, and then they separate again. And then get their, new
just have a meeting of the minds kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think with the Arendir and the humans, the break between season 1 and 2 could play into their favor, because they were, how many times do we have to see them set up a settlement?
That's true. Like a time lapse could kind of move it forward without having to drag it on.
Yeah, and then when we come back, it's like Theo's doing this, Arendir's doing this. This is the new human settlement. Like we like just get into fresh start. Yeah.
One last bit of the episode we haven't covered is Numenor was in this episode.
They returned to Numenor, correct?
Yes. The Queen and Elendil were on the ship.
I almost forgot about that whole sequence.
Well, yeah, because it was so weird. The sister of Isildur goes to the Palantir.
Was that this episode? Oh my goodness, I completely forgot. Yeah, okay. Get into it.
Well, yeah, I mean, there wasn't much to it, but the sister is like commissioned to do a painting of the king who's dying, and while she was like sketching him out, he just wakes up and is like, you need to go upstairs, but don't tell anyone. And he was a quest giver there for a second.
Straight up like Elder Scrolls quest giver there.
And then she goes up and I don't think it shows it, but she must touch the Palantir, and so I feel like that's going to set her on some evil path.
It's going to be like when they get back, the queen gets back, she's going to be like, the queen's blind, and she's hiding all this information from you. And then she's in relationship with Farazan's son, so then like he's going to try stirring stuff up, and it's going to be like a whole political Numenor side story.
Yeah. That's probably our C plot for season 2.
Oh, brother.
So, yeah, but
I was kind of hoping, even though I like Elendil and like, man, what's the lieutenant, Isildur's friend? I can't remember his name, but I like that character. I think the queen is fine too. But I was kind of hoping that like them being sent off back to Numenor would be like, all right, that's the end of that, and maybe we'll see them come again when Isildur reveals himself to be alive.
Yeah, like the plot will come to them, not they will be the plot.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah, that being said, I did like the queen being blind. Like that choice kind of gives her character more than just like, I'm the queen and I'm protecting my people. It's like now she's got to deal with the adversity of like, she's not 100% healthy, and so that's going to undermine her rule because people are like, well, our queen can't even see how is she fit to rule. And then Elendil's dealing with his own things, which is like losing Isildur, and he's going to come back and his daughter is going to be like stirring stuff up, and he's going to have this whole thing to deal with, and like that'll make for some good development, I think. So I'm not looking forward to it, but I think it's got potential, is how I think
that's the right word with this entire show is potential. So, like, I was personally, I was hoping that, like they finish up season 1, get some proper feedback, not just like internet feedback necessarily, and find out what worked, what didn't work, and then adjust it for season 2. But I guess they're just going full steam ahead, $1 billion into season 2 again. I think this season it was $58 million or something an episode.
That's a lot.
Do you think that the show justified that?
The visuals did. I don't think the rest of the show necessarily justified a budget that big. Like, that almost seems bloated.
Yeah, I think it was to get the rights, and then also maybe it was to make a statement of like, Amazon's here, baby. We got the biggest fantasy show, highest budget on TV.
Yeah, which is like sometimes a sign that you lack faith.
Yeah.
If you need to throw everything at the wall and be like, all right, take all our money.
It's too big to fail.
Yeah, and that's not always the case. Like Waterworld, the movie.
Mm-hmm. Huge budget, lots of production woes, and then it ends up being a stinker.
Yeah, which this one's not a stinker. But it did smell pretty bad out the gates.
Yeah.
They sprayed some Febreze, and now it's getting better.
So I think the one other thing I wanted to bring up and see your thoughts are, what do the rings do? Is it that they have to possess the rings with the mithril and just walk around like Linden and it keeps the spirit of the elves alive, or is it always supposed to be ambiguous?
So in the lore, I can't answer that question, but what I think they're going for is just like, because an elf is wearing the ring and like symbolically they're like a leader of their people, then that will like, protect all their people from the decay.
Okay.
So that's why they made 3, 1 for each leader. And like the reasoning was kind of interesting, but like makes sense because 2 is there's a power struggle, but 1 is like corrupting, which is like obviously because the one ring. So then 3
balance.
Yeah, and I think it's gonna be Elrond, Gil-galad, and Galadriel probably wearing them. But yeah, it's just like one of those things where it's like it's not the most detailed explanation, but it's just like they're the leader of the people, so their people aren't decaying, and that's how it works.
Okay. Any other last thoughts here?
Not many. Just that I'm looking forward to season 2.
Cautiously optimistic.
Yes, cautiously optimistic is the perfect way to word that. Because like I think. Well, maybe we should give the season as a whole a grade. What do you think?
This season... Oh, it's so tough for me. I think I'm going to have to give it a 6. 5.5 to 6.
You read my mind. I was going to give it a 6 because, the episodes towards the beginning were a bit rough, and then it picked it back up. And I think overall, yeah, a 6 kind of sums it up, but with potential to go up for sure.
Yeah, if they build on the framework that they have here and, just work a bit harder on the writing, then, like, there's no way it could be worse than the worst episode of this season. Like, I really don't see it being, like, I just don't know how you could go backwards that way.
Yeah, and I think it's going to get better from here, so I anticipate next season to be about a 7 or an 8.
Yeah, because season 1 should be the taste test for the quality of a show. And this is the flavor we got. And if it continues to be the flavor, we'll probably mildly enjoy it. All right, so these were just our thoughts on Lord of the Rings of Power, Season 1, Episode 8, the finale, as well as the season as a whole. If you have any comments, leave them in the comment section down below. If you liked our discussion, leave us a like. If you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. We'll catch you guys next time.